The Souls games are gripping. There's complex world building, layered characters, intricate boss design, and enthralling soundtracks. But the thing that sells, the grandiosity of your achievements, makes you know that you can take on anything, maybe even in real life, is crushing some of the hardest challenges possible in gaming. The Souls series is home to some of the hardest challenges in the industry, and Miyazaki has claimed that these challenges is where a huge part of the meaning comes from these games. Now that Elden Ring is out, I think it's finally time to make my top 10 hardest bosses in the series. It's quite difficult to rank these bosses that I've learned and practiced so many times. I've had to master their moves and learn their tells, and yet still struggle with others. Because the initial battle with some of these foes can be nearly insurmountable, but subsequent battles can be dramatically easier, it's tough to decide exactly how to place these. Should a boss that was impossible in my first run, but easier now, be ranked higher or lower than a boss who I never got booty blasted too horribly by, but still regularly struggle with? I'm trying to balance these different factors and finding my placements, so let me know what your hardest 10 are down below. I'll be interested to see what you put. There are certainly some Elden Ring bosses deserving of a spot, so let's see how they all rank up for me. Real quick, let's get through some honorable mentions. Dark Souls 1 is a classic game, full of some of the top gaming moments of all time. I love exploring this world, seeing the foes, and there's an undoubtable charm present in the forced exploration due to lack of warping early. However, the game mechanics do tend to show their age somewhat at times. Comparing the foes in the later series to this game shows the limits due to the technology and FromSoft's resources at the time. Many bosses in the game have a very limited moveset with telegraphed 2 to 3 hit combos and very wide openings for attack. This is not the case with Manus, Father of the Abyss. This boss has a wide moveset, a noticeable two-phased fight, long combos, huge range, massive damage, and an obfuscation of vision that causes difficulty in reading some moves. The dark background in combination with the dark boss is an imposing foe, matching the thematics of the Abyss, and the slower mechanics of Dark Souls 1 make roll spam not an easy solution to the confusion. The second honorable mention commands a lot of similar commentary in Black Dragon Calamite. The Dark Souls 1 DLC is where the real challenge of this game is located, and these two bosses live up to the Soulsborne difficulty hype even after all of these years. Now, on to the main list. Number 10, Fume Knight. Claiming my spot as a top foe of Dark Souls 2, Fume Knight lands itself just inside the top 10. In all honesty, the previous honorable mentions and Fume Knight have very similar commentary and reasoning behind their placements, and depending on what day, I might struggle with one more than the other. I think what gives Fume Knight the edge in terms of difficulty on this go-around is the possibility that you don't have the smelter wedges at your disposal to stop the healing mechanic. If you don't have those, the boss is difficult enough with two swords of varying size and speed, making reading attacks difficult. A lot of hitboxes linger with slow, long sweeping swings, meaning a roll in the wrong direction could lead to you just getting clipped. And these clipped hits, they hit you for massive damage in this fight. A two-phase boss with difficult to read attacks, 3 separate weapons to read, lingering hitboxes, and potential heal overload leave this knight just in my top 10 hardest of the series. Number 9, Slave Knight Gale. If this rating was solely in terms of my first experience with the boss, I could likely move this one up quite a bit. I could not fathom the width of this man's health bar. Even with a fully upgraded weapon, I felt like I was barely tickling in my first playthrough. His erratic nature of his first phase is difficult to read, and second phase is exceedingly stressful due to the explosive nature of his attacks, his cape trail that catches poor roll direction, and timings. Like, you're fighting this beast at the ends of the earth with auto crossbows, lightning, flying, and red glistening cape animations with one of the best series soundtracks booming in your ears. If that doesn't get you hyped, I don't know what will. And all that hype, it can be a lot to take in at times when you try to read Gale's seemingly endless moveset. With 3 distinct phases, it can feel like this fight is too much to take in, until you beat it, many times. With practice, this fight becomes very intuitive, and dodging becomes almost second nature. This is not necessarily true with every fight in the series, as even with multiple playthroughs of some bosses, they tend to still trip me up easily. Number 8, Nameless King. This two-phased battle is really all about that second half. The first may net me a few flasks lost here and there, but nearly every time the excessively delayed hits of the Nameless King just seem to catch me. His damage is absurd, his timings heavily punish roll spam, and this boss was designed to be the noob killer of Dark Souls 3's endgame, and he achieves that feat fantastically. First phase is quite long, and the second phase is even longer. It's a very long battle, and one that just is a battle of attrition. Number 7. Sister Fried. It may appear to be a consistent theme, but this is another fight I considered as unbeatable the first time I played it. I must have attempted Fried over 70 times before achieving victory. Dark Souls 3 was my very first Souls game, so I may have not been accustomed to a lot of the varying mechanics that this fight calls back to. I was not familiar with the invisibility of Priscilla and ways to counter it. I was not familiar with the gank fights of O and S and how to balance two enemies with varying sizes and speeds. I had not faced Lady Maria's Blood Flame, and the mix of all three together was too much for my Souls noob brain. I was overwhelmed, and even to this day, the length of this fight can be intimidating. I did manage to beat it on a Soul Level 1 run, and following that, I refused to buy the arguments that she's too fast for Dark Souls 3's engine. But I do see the deep moveset, different phases, endless aggression, massive damage, and monstrous health as a challenge nearing the top of my gaming experiences. Number 6. Dark Eater Midir. To wrap up our 4 straight bosses of Dark Souls 3 difficulty, yeah, I know there's a lot. Midir is here to stake his giant, beautifully sized claim. Okay, so every boss up to this point has a lot of health, a lot of damage, a lot of moves, and a lot to learn before being able to conquer them. So what puts Midir above the others? Well, I think I'd have to say because it breaks the formula a little bit. Typically with larger enemies, the strategy is to tickle their toes with your weapon, slowly chipping at their health from a place of safety, under or behind the beast. This fight encourages players to abandon that strategy entirely and take the beast head on, literally. Of course, many players are stubborn and refuse, with many Midir guides still citing toe trimming and butt whacking as the primary source of victory. The fight only allows you to lock onto Midir's head and leaves openings after nearly every attack for clear head damage. Strikes to Midir's head cause more damage than anywhere else in the beast, but the fact that this forces a different playstyle for so many players, especially for such a big boss, creates an even higher level of challenge than seen in previous entries. Adding the rapid movement of the boss, despite his behemoth size, you definitely have a boss that would top many's lists. I can see why, but there are still many ways to fight this dragon without it being too much of a headache. Still a big-ass beast, though. Number 5, Demon of Hatred. So take everything that I said for Midir and multiply that by 10 for Demon of Hatred. If Midir changed up the mechanics on the fight in a Souls game, Demon of Hatred dropped a nuclear bomb on the entire way that the game was played for the entirety of Sekiro. Rather than deflecting, it's jumping, running, dodging, and grappling that will bring you to victory. The fight is 3 massive health bars, meaning that this fight lasts so unbelievably long, with so many abilities doing more than 2/3 of your HP. Deflecting, which you've been refining the entire game, is only partially useful as you try to bob and weave your way through explosives and fire attacks. This boss changes everything with endgame damage and health, and for that, it definitely cracks the top 5. Number 4. Malekith, the Black Blade. Of course, we finally see Elden Ring. With Elden Ring being a new game, it's hard to know exactly where this boss will end up over time. I'm currently doing a Rune Level 1 playthrough of Elden Ring, and I'm stuck on the Beast Clergyman. I say Beast Clergyman because I can only get to Phase 2 once every 10 tries or so. Everything just one-shots me. Please, help me, God. If Beast Clergyman was the only phase of this fight, it wouldn't be so bad, though. The real challenge comes from the unbelievably OP Malekith phase. Holy crap, he didn't just have damage over time on his blade, he also had to reduce your max HP, have one-shot potential, fly all over the arena, and have huge follow-ups on many attacks. All of these combine to possible one-shots at almost any vigor, with almost any armor. And the fight is at a pace where it's hard to even keep track of at times. If this phase, like Phase 2, was the whole fight, I'd argue that this could even be in the top 2 of difficulty. As it is though, Phase 2 can end somewhat quickly because of the lower health pool. Thank God, because otherwise my 55 attempts could have easily turned to 100. Before I get to the top 3, make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed the video. It helps me out a lot. And subscribe for more Soulsborne content. Oh, and Elden Ring. Number 3, Ishin, the Sword Saint. More so than the previously mentioned Slave Knight Gale, if this ranking was based off of first encounters, this fight would easily be second. Fortunately, or unfortunately, The battles of Sekiro, more than any other game in the series, become unbelievably trivialized by subsequent playthroughs. It's so interesting how beating the game truly leaves you as a master of its combat. I can return to this game at any time, even after a year of absence, and defeat Ishin in a few tries. To be fair, I did do a base vitality level run, so that does make the boss a little bit easier since I had to learn it at that level. With all that said though, he has a whopping 4 phases, including entirely distinct battles in each one. The only exception is the lightning in phase 4, which makes the fight somewhat easier, though it's well earned for making it that far. What an unbelievably challenging fight, utilizing every single mechanic that the game has presented for you thus far. With rapid pacing and aggression, you must eye Ishin's every move to come out on top, and it amazes me that this fight lands all the way down at number 3 despite its iconic status. Number 2, Orphan of Kos. In all honesty, I did not understand the hype of Orphan of Kos. I actually faced Orphan for the first time in my Bloodborne playthrough on this channel. I'll link that playlist in the description, and came out on top in a measly like 20 tries. Considering bosses like Abyss Watchers took me 70 tries on my first playthrough, I was confused at the legendary status of this boss had amongst the community. But during my run through Bloodborne, I had an affinity for the Saw Cleaver. I felt every boss was like intuitively decimated with my weapon of choice. So on my subsequent playthrough, in which I accounted for boss deaths, I died over 50 times against Orphan. My only change was the use of Ludwig's Holy Blade, which I felt would be fine against Orphan, but for whatever reason, the experience was dramatically harder. It felt impossible and my frustration built into fury. I lost again and again, humbled after I considered myself a master of the Soulsborne combat. I'd beaten Dark Souls 3 on Soul Level 1, Sekiro on Base Vitality, and I still found myself being rammed into a wall over and over again by this dumbass with a shrimp. I never thought another would beat this utterly devastating challenge. And that was until number 1, Malenia, Goddess of Rot. Malenia is hands down the most challenging battle of my video game experiences. Take the stacked components of nearly every boss on this list, add even more damage, more health, and more everything. Then, add the ability to heal. A lot. And then, add the stupid water farter dance. Jesus Christ, it's like it never stops. If she uses this when you're close to her, good luck, because she's healing and you're taking a lot of damage. Yes, I know that there are counters to this move, with quotation marks around the counter. You could use Bloodhound Step and yeet yourself to safety from the first onslaught. You could use a shield to block out the first volley, and you could keep your distance and bait it out. The problem is, this fight lasts for so long. I found myself running in circles waiting for her to bait out a move after taking around a quarter of her HP. I waited to bait it out, and sometimes I would just get one shot by her, or she would just heal back all the progress that I had made. I don't use shields and I don't use Bloodhound Step. I was determined to beat her on my grafted greatsword build, and my stubbornness led me to 125 deaths of pure anger. To be fair, she does say that you will witness true horror, and I definitely felt I had after running through her gauntlet of destruction. It is one of the most beautiful fights of the series and an unbelievable challenge, but at the same time, I felt almost lucky when I finally did beat her. On my final victory battle against her, she only used the Spin of Doom once in Phase 2, and I kind of felt like I got lucky. I still don't really know exactly how to win this fight, and for now, I can confidently say that she is the hardest boss in all of Soulsborne. With all that said, thanks guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to check out some of my other rankings if you're interested. Drop a like, subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of it. And I'll see you guys soon. Leave your own rankings below. Remember, peace.